Hello, welcome to Analog Adventures. My name is Crispin Jeffrey Franco, and I'm a founder of Stacks Book Club. Joining me tonight is author Mai Corland. May is the author of an amazing fantasy trilogy called the Broken Blades Trilogy that debuted last year with Five Broken Blades. If you're new to this series, Five Broken Blades is about five of the realm's most dangerous, devious liars, thieves, and outlaws that come together to take on one of the most impossible tasks ever. They've got to kill the God King of Yusan. As the story unfolds, you get to meet all of the different characters in the story. You get a really great backstory, and each one of them has a specific reason why they've agreed to take on this mission that likely will result in death. But they also all have their own collection of lies that they hold close to their chest. Like any great fantasy series, the first book ends with an amazing cliffhanger, which picks us up right in the second book for Ruined Realms, which came out just a couple weeks ago and is available at bookstores now. Go out to your local independent bookstore, grab a copy of both if you haven't checked it out. In For Ruined Realms, the crew's back together, this time with a new target that's even more dangerous. They have to steal the golden ring of the Dragon Lord from the Queen of Khitan. May, welcome to Analog Adventures. What are you drinking tonight?
Thank you so much for having me. So I am drinking an incredibly watered down and now room temperature, once iced coffee with vanilla syrup and half and half.
Nice, love it. I've got a glass of red wine that my wife poured for me right before we got started. May, let's jump right in here. I was reading a little bit about your backstory, and you actually got your start writing, yeah, children's books and young adult. What was it
Hmm.
making the jump to adult fantasy?
Oh, I loved it. I had initially wanted to write adult, but back in the time that I started querying, which is those letters that you send to try to get an agent. And then when we first went on sub, they really weren't accepting diverse authors in adult the way they are now. So the thought was to get a foothold and to like get some success with writing for teens because at that point they were doing really great, and they still are doing really great things in the young adult space.
Nice, that's awesome. Yeah, and so now you're with Red Tower. Anybody
Hmm.
that's been paying attention to fantasy and romantasy, especially over the last couple, I guess like year and a half to 2 years, I would say. Like Red
Yep.
Tower is like absolutely on fire. So what's it like being at like the publisher that seems to not miss in the genre right now?
It's a dream. It is so different. Like I was with a publisher for my teen books and I got a starred review, which is great. Like
Oh,
it's not easy to get them. And I asked, I this was back when Twitter was still Twitter. I had asked if they would retweet it and they were like, "Oh no, we can't."
wow.
And I'm like, it's free. Like you just press the
Yeah, it
button.
doesn't cost anything.
Um, and they were like, "Yeah, but then we'd have to do it for everybody." I'm like, okay. And in the meantime, Red Tower is like, here's what we're going to do for marketing. Here's where you're going to go for publicity. It is, it's seamless. Like they handle so much for you. They are on the cutting edge of what these books are going to look like, what events you should attend. So I'll meet you in Tucson, which is great. Um, it's just, it's such a different experience. It's hard to believe that it's the same industry.
That's amazing. That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, you touched on, I think what Red Tower really has become known for pretty quickly, and I think like legitimately changed the genre and changed the expectation is just these gorgeous initial deluxe editions that they're putting out. So speaking of which, if folks haven't seen your two books, I mean, especially side by side, if you're a collector out there and you're all about shelf style, I don't know that it gets any better than these two. I can't wait to see what the third one looks like. What kind of input? How much say do you get to have on these sprayed edges and kind of the end paper designs? I mean, these are just incredibly beautiful books.
So the M papers are astounding. Like Juo Choi had done it. I want to. I hope I'm saying their name right. Um, and I had almost no input. Like I would have just gotten in the way. They captured the spirit of the book, the tone, and it's just everything they did so well that I'm like, well, I'll just get in the way. But funny thing is, you mentioned what they look like together. A reader had asked, or I guess, hypothesized that the edges were going to form a scene. And I'm like, oh, hold on, can they? So I email the art department. I'm like, hey, reader was asking, but could we do this? Could we make the edges um, run together and form a scene? She goes, hold on, wait a second. And she's like, let me email the team. And so then she came back. This is Elizabeth Turner Stokes, who did all the design for all three books, and showed me what it would look like. And it was just astounding.
Yeah, I mean they are just absolutely gorgeous. Um, yeah, they're like complete showstoppers. So congratulations on some of the most beautiful books out there for sure.
Thank you. It's so great to sit there with a book that you're so proud of, from the way it looks to what's in it. Like, it's just great.
Yeah, I can only imagine. So would you consider these romanticy? I mean, there's obviously for readers that have read the first, the first book or are going to dip into the first and second, there are definitely romantic scenes in the book, but I don't
Mhm.
would you consider it traditional like full like new genre romantasy or is it fantasy that has some romance in it? How do you look at it?
So the way I look at it is romantasy is taking those two terms and just blurring them, right? There's romance, there's fantasy, and so you're running the whole spectrum of it. I think though, if you're expecting kind of the new version of romantasy, where romance is really the core and the focus, and the world is kind of secondary, um, I don't know that you'll love this book the way that somebody would love fantasy with romantic elements.
Yeah, I generally agree. I think I think for me personally, I am much more of the fantasy than the romantasy reader. So for me, the level of romance was just about right. I was in it for the political intrigue and the world building.
Mhm.
I just think are astounding. Speaking of which, you've created this entire realm that these characters exist in. Where does that come from? How do you start to put the pieces together to all of the components that go to building this trilogy?
So it starts with a really poorly drawn hand map. I am not a cartographer, but all of a sudden you're an amateur cartographer trying to figure out where to put cities and how long it's going to take to get from one spot to the other. Then you're like Googling, like, how far can a horse go in a day so that you can try to figure out how long it would feasibly take somebody to reach from one side to the other. But the influences are both east and west. Like Temneki comes out of Atlantis, really. Fallow and then Rahway, they're more desert cities, and Gain is more what I think of as being kind of like Mediterranean, south of France. Umbria is more like Germany, Northern European city, because Yusan was four separate um, kingdoms and then was merged together about 1,000 years ago. So they maintain some of their regional aspects, which makes it really difficult to write. And like, I'm not sure why I did this, other than like, I think it reflects the world. I think it gives you a richer tapestry to build off of. So there's a colony island that used to be its own realm, and that's Gaia. And you learn more about that as the series progresses. And when you go from Yusan to Catan, Catan's more of this blend of kind of Norway and Mongolia. Um, and it has the attributes of having, a very harsh climate where most of the people live at the bottom of the peninsula, like you find in Norway and in Alaska. And then there's another island nation of Way. And all of it's kind of loosely, very loosely, based off of Korean history.
Oh, nice. That's amazing. That's amazing. I feel like it's almost a little bit of like an inversion of the United Realm that breaks apart and becomes individual, and then like walls go up. So the idea of like they were independent states and now they're kind of like in a forced marriage together. I think you can kind of, like really feel that tension, especially as you start to kind of dig into the underlying reason that each of the characters has decided to take on this mission. Now, I love an ensemble cast. It's like one of my favorite things. How do you keep them all square in your head? Like, what does the pinboard of strings that are tying them together look like? And then I have to ask, since Five Broken Blades does have a silhouetted character on the spine or on the end pages or on the yeah the sprayed edges there, is there a main character or do you really just see this as an equal group?
I really see it as a true ensemble. For Five Broken Blades, Sora is on the edge. For Four Rune Realms, Mikhail is on the edge, and then there'll be a different character for the last book that comes out in July. Um, so the ensemble is it's funny because it starts out with, oh, we have to make sure the voices are distinct. We have to make sure that one doesn't go missing. That
Yeah.
as we switch around the narration, that you don't you're not going too long until you hear from this one, because the group gets together around midpoint in the book. Um, by Three Shattered Souls, the last book, it was like having people here talking to me. Like it was that effortless to switch who's like it was very obvious whose point of view it would be in. It was just like a new person talking and taking over the narration. And I think it really was that way like pretty early into Four Rune Realms. So that makes it kind of fun. You just sit there with your imaginary friends.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think the other really fun thing that I like about the way that the cast is put together, most of there's a couple like natural pairings that enter the group together, but like you said, once the five of them actually get together in Five Broken Blades, you start to create these fun pairings where characters are sort of paired off and they're, off trying to accomplish their part of the mission in these kind of mixed up groups, and getting to see them interact with each other, outside of the person that they came into this with necessarily. I really like that component. Was that like intentional by design, or is that just sort of how the story came together?
So I really liked that they all have this tension of opposing goals. Like if one of them succeeds, everybody else has to fail. That immediately creates this tension in the group. And then I put in there's like these archetypical I don't am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. These archetypical pairs that, there's a grump sunshine,
Right.
there's enemies to lovers, there's, kind of second chance or exes,
Right.
that are expectations of the romantic genre. And I love putting them in but they're interacting with a lot of murder. Like, it's a different type of way to do romantasy that I really liked.
Yeah, I mean the stakes are so much greater, right? Like they're literally on this mission that feels like it should be certain death, and so the stakes are just different than yeah what you would get out of a romance pairing with with that same type of trope. So it's fun to see that you were thinking about that. I enjoyed that a lot. So I would say both fantasy and romantasy sort of have a kind of like high expectations in terms of what readers are looking for. Did you ever feel pressure when you were writing the book to like raise the stakes on the characters or intensify the heat for the characters on the romance side, or were you pretty comfortable in telling the story that you wanted to tell?
I was pretty comfortable with it. It's funny, I posted, that the third book will be called Three Shattered Souls and that it'll be out in July. And then I said, for what it's worth, I'm sorry. And people were freaking out, like, what do you mean? What does that mean? But so it's because it kind of blurs that line between romantasy and epic fantasy, there is a little bit of worry that um people may not love the the ending, the way that the series ends. We are preparing to do a spinoff because we do know that that is a distinct possibility.
That's great.
Because epic fantasy ends one way and romantasy ends a different way. So um, the heat is an interesting discussion. It kind of gets spicier, I suppose, as the series goes on. Like, as you're setting everybody up and trying to build this world and why you'd be interested in these people to begin with, why you would care. I didn't think that Spice really had a part in that. I think it would have been because there were different times where I said, maybe a scene here or there, and it really just it took away from the tension. It distracted from the intrigue and the overall goals. Um, there was a moment in Four Ruin Realms where, yeah, we could get a little bit more um, open door with things, because it was the right moment and it was in a lull in the story. And then Three Shattered Souls will have that too. And I think we'll go a little spicier with it, but it's still not, yeah, it's not a five chili pepper type of read.
Yeah. So you kind of alluded to it a little bit. So we have the series finale coming out this summer,
Yes.
which I'm very excited to get my hands on. And then what after that? So you just teased possibly a spinoff. Are you working on some other projects? Where do you go next?
So there will be a spinoff. We'll announce, I don't know, maybe mid-year. I don't know. I don't have a date for that. I don't have anything like really written down for that yet. But what I'm working on right now is a romantasy that is also a murder mystery, and I am having the best time with it. Um, it's tentatively titled The Verity Guild. It's going to be a trilogy. Um, it's I've said it's The Heartless Hunter meets And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie,
Interesting. Yeah.
but set in like an ancient Rome Republic era inspired setting.
I mean, this goes back to like the comment you made at the very start. I feel like so I'm super excited by that. I feel like the playground is sort of being opened to new ideas and new voices in a variety of ways, which is like really exciting to start to see more diversity and more representation in terms of who's getting a chance to write these stories. And now the idea of like, yeah, blending genres in a third way, where now we've got romantasy and
Murder mystery, yeah.
yeah, like what's it like just pushing that envelope and why do you think that things are starting to open up like this?
So I would say that Book Talk is definitely bringing in more readers. And I think as those readers discover what they like and don't like, they're making traditional publishing branch out the same as they're like the success of certain indies, independent authors has actually been picked up and then traditionally published. I have a couple friends in that category, and they are also pushing the envelope because there's a reason they're indie. Like they probably didn't get their initial books approved because they were like, no, somebody in some house said this won't sell. And they proved them wrong and that it did. So there's a lot of envelope pushing going on and I love it. And because it's a better overall experience for the readers. But Red Tower is very behind this push of like, what are the borders of this? What are the borders of romantasy going to be? And so it's really great to have a publisher that supports that kind of like, hey, what if we did this as a murder mystery? And she's like, I love it. I love murder mysteries. So yeah, I'm really excited.
That's really awesome. That's fantastic. Well, we're really excited. For a reader that hasn't jumped into the series, what would be what's your call to action for them? What are they going to find when they pick up Five Broken Blades?
So I like to say that Five Broken Blades is Kill Bill meets Ocean's 11,
Love it.
which I know is comping to two movies, but I think it fits because you've got this cast of mostly adult characters, but there's that humor that's in Ocean's 11 that doesn't really get translated when it's comped to other things. But that this Kill Bill story of this people are seeking revenge, they're trying to ultimately take the life of this God King. You're going to have a lot of found family, but a lot of morally gray trust issue people.
That is an amazing selling point. I agree with that 100%. May, thank you so much for taking some time to join us tonight and talk about your series. I hope everybody out there jumps in. Both feet go all the way. You're not going to regret it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, May. Where can people follow you if they want to keep tabs on what you're working on?
Sure. So I'm on Instagram. I think it's just at May Corland.
Perfect. Awesome.
Thank you
Well,
so much for having me.
yeah, we'll leave it there. Check out Five Broken Blades and Four Ruined Realms, like I said, at your local independent bookstore now. And if you are in the Tucson area, you can see May at the Tucson Festival of Books in March. May, thanks so much
Yeah.
for joining us.
Thank you.